Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, your live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I am your host, David J. Murphy, reporting to you live from Puerto Rico. Happy to be back on the show. I was busy last week. I actually just flew in to the island and was getting still settled in last week, so I wasn't able to make the show, but glad to be back. And thank you, Zach, so much for running things in my absence. I appreciate that fully. Zach, of course, is my co-host, who I do this show every week with. Zach, how you been doing, buddy?
I'm okay. I just got put on a list of supposed Antifa activists who are in Charlottesville by a white supremacist site, so that should be a fun coming week. So yeah, that's my thing.
Man, your photo goes viral and you get put on a list. I mean, that's you can't ask for anything more than that.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you, Zach, for running the show last week. Like I said, I'm back, ready to do some hosting action from Puerto Rico. We got two great panelists on our show tonight. The first one is Daniel Schuler, returning panelist. Daniel, how you been, buddy?
Pretty good. Besides getting arrested earlier this week in St. Louis during a protest. But
nice.
That's been great.
And our next guest this evening is Anna. Anna, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hey, hi guys. I'm Anna Quim from Las Vegas. I'm a mobile journalist for Eagle News. Glad to join you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Anna tonight is going to be talking all about one of our main topics this evening. Of course, she was in Las Vegas during the major active shooter event that happened there. And, really, tonight it's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. We'll still talk about different topics, but since we've all kind of been in and around interesting sort of news stuff, we're just going to talk about what we've been doing recently because it's interesting. And then we'll talk a little bit about gear at the end. But, of course, let's start with, obviously, the most important news story probably in a while here, one of the highest murder counts, death counts of any active shooter in history. And Anna, you were, of course, the focal point in that. You were there when it happened. Can you please talk about your experience and kind of what you felt, what happened, where were you, just all the details so we can understand what you went through.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. So that happens a week ago, Sunday, yesterday. We were, actually just got home, my family, and then my son showed a video on Instagram, and at first we were thinking it was fireworks, or because it was fireworks, we didn't know what was happening, and then all of a sudden you hear everybody just saying there's a shooter in this location and this location. So they named a few of the hotels surrounding Mandalay Bay, and my husband looked at me. He happens to be one of our camera people, so he said, "Let's go." And my daughter looks at me. I have my 14-year-old daughter, and she says, "You guys are going out there? It's going to be crazy." And we said, "You know what? We have to go." So we go out, and mind you, this is not, the usual news stories that I do for Eagle News. So I was really nervous because I didn't know what to expect. So we go out, we pick up one of our producers, and we find out where the media staging is, and we go out there. We get there, of course, there's CNN, there's Fox News, there's Channel 8. And I had to go live and just give a quick update. At that time, there was no official report yet that was given out. We were waiting for somebody from Las Vegas Metro Police Department at that time. So my initial report was just basically what we've heard, what we've seen online, that people were posting, saying that there were multiple shooters, that there were like a bomb threat at one of the properties. And then minutes later, a sergeant, Jeff Clark, I believe was his name, came on and gave a brief, a very short update. He said at that time that there was only one shooter and they had somebody in custody at that point. So we were only that media staging, that initial media staging was just a couple of miles down from Mandalay Bay. So you see Mandalay Bay. Of course, they've already had the roads blocked. That was on Las Vegas Boulevard, which is the main street. So we couldn't get any closer than that. But then you see people, workers, people that were, not necessarily from the concert, but workers that were being told to, go home, and just the look on their faces. And we weren't able to interview because we were told, we were asked not to interview anybody at that time. But then even at that moment, even at that initial, few minutes of the active shooting, when it started, there were already people like drivers, Uber drivers, that were offering rides, to these either workers or just tourists, just kind of, trying to find their way, trying to get away from Mandalay Bay at that time. Yeah. And then eventually, later that night, a few minutes later, we were told they were going to move. They were going to give an official press conference. So we moved to the headquarters of the Las Vegas Police Department, where like a couple hours later, we got a more more detailed report from the Sheriff Lombardo at that time. So, the first couple of nights, we followed the story. Even now, actually, I mentioned earlier, we're actually going to be heading to the Las Vegas Strip later tonight, and just to do kind of like a follow up. But the first few nights, we hardly got sleep because we did live reporting updates to our main network, which is based in Manila, the next couple of days. And it's been really tough. It's, people are still talking about it up to now. And I think it's because there's no leads. The very latest update that I got was yesterday they issued, they started returning the items of those, to the people who were at the concert. That was the only, that was the first day that they started giving back their items, whether it was their car, their purses, bags, things like that. And, but I can tell you the Las Vegas community has really come together. We're not just a party city, as people know us. We've come together as a community. We cannot thank, enough the law enforcement, police department, the first responders, and just a lot of, volunteers. Even now, actually, there's volunteers at, UMC, which is one of the main hospitals, which is a trauma center. They're just there, giving food to whoever. So there's vigils. Yeah. So.
Wow. So how are you doing personally yourself?
I'm trying to catch up with sleep. We're trying to, it's one of those things that we just keep going back to, because I think it's because we don't know why. Yesterday, actually no, 2 days ago, the press conference that was held by chief deputy from the fire department and also the FBI agent that's leading the case now, while he's helping, they don't have any leads. And I think that's what scares the people, the public, is that we don't know why. People are afraid of the unknown. So, and that's why we keep talking about it. I think, I wonder what's new today, in regards to the story. But yeah, I mean, they have on billboards, major billboards around the city, that if you know anything, at this point, they're saying, if you bumped into him, he was eating at a restaurant, if you bumped into him, if you remember seeing him a week ago, a month ago, even a year ago, please tell us something. Mm-hmm. And the major plea from the law enforcement to the media is to the public, to relate to the public, to please, if you have something, not speculations, not just, it has to be facts. because unfortunately they have to follow whatever lead that's given to them. You know, and they understand that, you know, probably most of those is gonna end up as nothing. But unfortunately right now, because they really don't have anything, after reviewing the surveillance tapes and after, you know, ATF has gone through the materials that was confiscated from his room, from his 2 homes, from his car, unfortunately, you know, they don't have anything. They don't have any solid leads. So that's the plea, is that if you're gonna, you know, you're gonna post something, you know, be it facts. And that's the thing I'm learning, is that, you know, I'm fairly new. I've been doing this for a year, and you know, as a journalist, you want to be able to provide facts so that you don't panic the public, the people, you know, any more than they already are.
How is your network dealing with the fact, or have you got any sense of like your home base for the network, not for you, but for the network, the fact that his wife is Filipino, correct? Or Filipino, correct?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
have you guys
she is
like,
Filipina.
Yeah, news networks always have that like kind of tie-in, and like if it touches home, especially internationally, and she's flying back, and there's like a whole kind of unusual money issue, and kind of like all the leads seem to be going towards Philippines. How is your network dealing with that, especially since you're the kind of the voice of the network and thing? Right. As much as you can say, I understand, like, can't talk, you know, behind the scenes stuff what you're talking about, but yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it kind of hits home, you know, because we're based in Manila. She's Filipina. She, you know, she did come from the Philippines. Mm-hmm. She flew in, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday. She was picked up by FBI at the LA International, and the only update we got from that, you know, from the FBI was, you know, they questioned her. They weren't able to, since she was, you know, cooperating. Of course, there's that trust. You know, they couldn't give us any more information than yes, we talked to her. She's a person of interest, but she's not in custody. Yeah. So, and she's continuing to cooperate with them, give them information that hopefully may, you know, because as you probably already know, she said that she really was not aware of, I mean, she had no idea, just like the brother, you know, and you can tell, I mean, I didn't see the coverage on her, but, you know, the brother, when you watched it, you could honestly tell, you know, say that sincerely, he did not know anything, you know, he didn't know anything. So, yeah.
Let me ask a question, and, you know, I pose this to the group, you know, because, you know, I'm not saying that my answer or my thoughts are definitive, but, you know, my thinking is, like, we're trying to figure out why he did this, right? We're trying to figure out the heart of the story, you know, where was the motivation and stuff like that. But I mean, really, does it matter, you know, in a sense that this was a guy who, you know, do we need to know why he did this? He did this because he was deranged and insane, and for whatever reason, he felt the need to shoot innocent people. You know, I think, you know, there is, of course, that, you know, innate desire to want to know, like, oh, well, what was the lead up to the story? Why did he do it? But is any answer really going to do anything differently? Is there any, you know, reason to explore this person's psyche and, you know, backstory other than to perhaps build enough material to do that, you know, movie of the week about his life and, you know, whatnot? I mean, you know, again, it's a tragic story that happened, and, you know, I think maybe this will give closure to some people, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, Zach, I think on last week's show, you didn't even want to mention the name of somebody because you didn't want to give that person that attention, you know, like you didn't want to mention some shooter, you know, at the bombing of the Oklahoma City bombing, right? But,
yeah,
you know,
well,
of course,
the same deal with Charlottesville. You know, I don't think I've ever said his name. At least I haven't tried. Because again, I mean, one of what psychologists say continually, and this is to me one of the things which actually is, I'd like to actually point this question to you, Anna, as well, is that how do you deal, like, the fact more coverage and more glorification, or not in glorification, but the more you talk about the killer, the more it's likely to cause a follow-up or a copycat or everything like that. Every psychologist says that. The networks always talk about that, but then they continually do this on loop as well. Like, how have you been able to, like, kind of work with that with your own Like, do you mention the shooter's name, or do you like how what's your kind of idea of what you do?
Yeah, no, actually, I myself refuse to to mention his name. Just like you know, our very own Mayor Goodman, during one of the vigils, she said, you know, she refuses to even get, you know, give uh, any more attention to him. So our follow up story is more on like uh, what the people, the healing, the coming together, the positive outcome of this, you know, if you can call it that, that the people, there's this sense of like uh, community, you know, even closer. Like you walk down the street and you see the people, or in the grocery stores, or you know, you look at people and they were before, you know, they may not even look at you, and maybe it's just me, but you kind of feel that sense of community, like even though you don't say it, you know, like you say, well, I'm glad you're okay, kind of like that feeling. So for our follow-up, I'm not, and this is the thing, like when I go, I attended the first 3 4 press conferences, I believe, and I, you know, maybe I'm just, you know, I'm a different, I don't know, I guess I'm new, but a lot of the people, a lot of the reporters that were there, you know, they wanted to know details, like how many rounds did he have, and how many rounds did he have left, and how, you know what I mean, like they wanted to know details of how he did it, you know, where's the cat, but I wasn't interested in that, you know, what are we going to do for, I was more interested in where do we go from here. um so
That's, I mean, that's, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, obviously the discussion we need to have is about, you know, gun control, obviously, and the debate, you know, that's where this needs to go, you know, because we can't just, you know, give our thoughts and prayers and then, you know, then another gun shooting happens. And,
right.
You know, so I mean,
Right.
how many more, you know, the worst mass shootings in history is it going to take before there's a realistic and serious look at the way we, you know, issue and, you know, let people have firearms in this country, you know?
Yeah. And weirdly, I'm going to try to stay off the politics for myself.
What?
This is usually what I do.
Well, you know,
yeah, go ahead, Anna.
Actually, you know, that was the main, you know, people were thinking, because President Trump did come to Las Vegas, and I believe that was Wednesday. And that was one of the things that, you know, people were speculating, is he going to talk about, is he going to bring up about the NRA? But, you know, of course he didn't. So, but the latest on that, which I'm sure I don't know if you guys have read also, is that a lot of these, I mean, Senate members, they didn't know about bomb stock. I didn't know about bomb stock. I had to look it up. You know, I'm not into guns, but they didn't know that that's readily available.
Yeah.
You can easily buy it. So I don't know. I mean, well, hopefully this will bring about change, because now they're saying that they're at least talking about it, you know, considering it.
Even the NRA brought up the idea of possibly doing something on it, which is, as a person who's been working on a film about the NRA for the last year or two, is shocking to me that there's even a discussion. I have the question on, and this kind of, I think, can kind of go for everybody, depending, I don't know how much either, I guess Daniel or Dave have been able to actually watch kind of the media in the last week. Daniel's been in a prison cell for some of it, and David's been in and out of a plane, and I'm guessing probably not watching cable news and like that as much, and even just watching the cameras down there. But like I've been really disturbed by the obsession with a lot of the cable news networks, and this kind of goes to my previous thing about not mentioning the killer's name. The loop of showing the few clips that we have of the, you know, the rat-tat-tat of the guns, and you know, from the angle, the obsession was showing this 3 second, and the same thing 3 second, you know, clip on loop of people diving down, potentially getting hit. You don't know actually what's happening because it's blurry. Same thing in Charlottesville. The amount of times that that one clip has been shown, oh my God. I mean, even the DeAndre Harris's beating, the amount of times I've seen that video clip, and after seeing it in person as well. But how, like, and if we can everybody go across, I mean, how do you think that's useful in it? I mean, like, what's the purpose other than filling a video space?
Yeah, you go.
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why, you know, they would. It's not useful. I mean, I don't know what their purpose is. Unfortunately, I think the public, you know, the media, that's what they like to. That's what they like to see. You know, I hate to say it, but that's what they want to see.
Yeah.
You know, even through these, you know, it's an ongoing investigation. People would rather. I mean, I hear people, you know, just talking about, well, you know, I think they're lying. I think that, you know, there's got to be another shooter, and you know, and a couple of times I have to tell them, look, guys, we have to trust that the law enforcement, what they're telling us, is the truth.
Yeah.
You know, you see all these. It's so easy to manipulate pictures on social media. You know, there was that video that they were showing that was circulating about where the shots were coming from.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. It's unbelievable that people would rather believe what's on social media rather than what's being, you know, provided by the law enforcement. So
yeah, I mean, there's already been photos from inside the room leaked on the internet, and it's been shared all around on Facebook, which I basically have just come to blocking the people that share those, which is, you know, interesting. Which actually, I mean, I guess that's kind of part of the question. Like, Daniel, I mean, you've taken a bunch of you've taken some photos in St. Louis. I'm sure you've seen some terrible things in taking photos. I mean, like, where's your personal line on where you want to view those kind of horrific photos? Like, where should they be seen? I mean, is there like the inherent right for the public to have, you know, be able to see everything all the time? You know, what if you were an editor? What would you do?
I think I would run it for the when it's breaking, maybe into the next day. But I mean, we're almost a week out now, and you're still getting this video of people being shot. On top of, you know, the language inside the video is censored. Like, you can watch people die on.
The middle finger is censored. That the one there's a photo of a guy flipping off the hotel. They censor that, but nothing else. The blood on the ground, nothing else. It's stunning to me.
Those censors, I tell you.
Yeah, I would run. I always take pictures of everything. It's up to whoever's editing to pick and choose. But I think people should see some tough imagery sometimes. It makes it real for a lot of people.
So for me, I'm thankful for the fact that I'm out here in Puerto Rico and I'm working a lot. So I don't have a lot of time to think about or watch all the stuff that's going on the news. So I can kind of avoid that. Of course, I'm cognizant of it and I've seen the video. But thankfully, again, like I said, I don't have a TV on it's showing me 24-hour news, so I can avoid the loop. But you know, it's again, my focus is, you know, again, been on Puerto Rico and telling that story. But you know, the mass shooting is ever prevalent because, you know, we have to look at what's being said about Puerto Rico in the news, right? And the thing is, news cycles as they are move on. So, you know, the worst hurricane to hit Puerto Rico in, like, you know, years, it's gonna, you know, be devastating. You know, people don't have electricity, you don't have food or water. You know, the constant struggle to try and make sure we're getting to everyone is, you know. But of course, the Las Vegas shooter takes over the thing. Hurricane Nate takes over the next news cycle, and you know, ultimately, that's just the fact of life. That's the fact of any ongoing story. You know, we'll probably see, you know, Puerto Rico come back into the news maybe like a month from now, you know, where it's again to see like what's the update. But you know, beyond that, you know, so I haven't been paying too much attention to the Las Vegas shooter beyond just the first few days. So you know, I check in every once in a while. I can't help it. You know, I'm curious just like everybody else is, but mostly because it's just always prevalent. You know, like you can't not look at news. I have the news app on my iPhone. It's like, oh, what did President Trump say? Oh, what did the Las Vegas, what's the news in the Las Vegas thing? It's like, so.
Well, I mean, even just watching MSNBC tonight, they're still talking about the paper towel incident in Puerto Rico. So they're really covering the importance, him throwing paper towels. I don't know if you guys saw the report that he briefly considered throwing a can of chicken to the audience, and somebody stopped him from doing it. So anyway, but
but
really focusing on the important stuff. That's what our cable networks do.
But I definitely think it's going to evolve over time, and Anna, we'd love to have you on again in the future to talk about this and talk about how it's kind of gone on from here. But I think we should definitely maybe move on to another subject, since again we've all been sort of involved in a lot of stuff, and we kind of let's brighten up the mood a little bit before we go into talking about Puerto Rico, which I could talk about. Let's talk about something fun and non-serious. Comic-Con. How was Comic-Con, Zach?
See, I really we're gonna jump to me after that, and we still.
I was really hoping to hear.
Zach, we gotta lighten the mood.
Yeah, Anna.
Okay. I said I was really hoping to hear Daniel's story first, but yeah.
All right, well, let's go to Daniel's story about
Daniel. We can end with my terrible. Poor.
In St. Louis.
Let's go to Daniel. Daniel, tell us about your story about being arrested. Maybe there's some fun.
Set up. I mean, I think that the recent protests in St. Louis were, I feel like, very briefly, like otherwise it'd be a national news story still probably. But we've had a couple.
Yeah, I didn't even know there were protests in St. Louis.
Yeah, what was this about? Can you tell us, anybody who might have missed why were the protests again? And just set up what happened. If you could.
Yeah, 6 years ago, St. Louis City police officer shot and killed Anthony Lamar Smith after a car chase, and he was recently acquitted of murder charges from it. And protests have been happening in St. Louis for the past 3 years. They haven't ever really stopped. But the protest community reorganized and is bigger than it's been since Ferguson, because of just like aspects of the case where there was Jason Stockley was the officer. He 45 seconds before he shot him, he said, "I'm gonna kill this motherfucker," and he had his DNA on the gun inside the car, but not Anthony Lamar Smith's DNA wasn't on it. So a lot of people thought maybe for once a St. Louis police officer will get
jail time.
Jail time, yeah, for something that happened. But basically a few days before, sorry, a bunch of things just popped up on my window. A few days before the verdict even came down, they were barricading the police station and the courthouse. And Zach was with me in D.C. while we were covering
that's true.
the Moore rally and the Juggalo March. I was out there on assignment, and I was watching St. Louis, and you were like, stop watching it. You're just going to
get literally updating your phone because the protests were happening from the time then. Well, not thankfully, I don't know how to say it, but, coverage-wise, you were able to get out there after a arduous hanging out time in Atlanta, was it, too?
Yeah, I had stuck in Atlanta for 14 hours, I think. Bought a new ticket and then got bumped from 5 flights on my layover. So, yeah.
So
what? 5 flights?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a ticket the night before
oh my goodness.
On economy class, and apparently that puts you on the same list as everyone on standby.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Good to know for next time.
Did you get any money for being on standby or getting bumped?
Not yet.
Oh man.
So was there anything different about the night that you got arrested, or was it, just your kind of your standard day? Because you also weren't the only one that got arrested that night too. So
yeah, this was different in that it was a highway shutdown, which hasn't happened since 2014. The police are really, really good about stopping anyone from ever getting onto a highway, because roads get blocked all the time, but never like a major interstate. So It only lasted for about a half-mile march down the interstate. Everyone got off, and then the police kettled everyone, and basically they said everyone's going to jail, everyone's arrested.
Oh wow!
And everyone in the media was like, "We're pressed. What should we do?" And they're like, "You're arrested." That was it.
And this, mind you, is a couple days after. If you can tell the story, which I think we're actually in DC when the police were chanting in the streets.
Yeah, the police were chanting "Whose streets are streets," which is a protester chant.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
While they were in riot gear, and then they did a much more violent version of what they did the other night, where they kettled reporters, journalists, and protesters together, and basically pepper sprayed them.
Oh wow! So you were pepper sprayed too?
Wow.
I was not pepper sprayed. That was while I was in DC. Whenever
Oh, okay.
the last time they kettled everybody like that.
Wow.
They were much more gentle this time.
So that's allowed?
Uh,
I thought reporters, journalists are.
yeah, everybody was credentialed. We told them who we were, and I mean, some officers seemed sympathetic toward it, but they were still like, "We're arresting you."
Oh my gosh. So how many did they arrest, do you think?
I think the final number was 143.
Wow. How many of those were reporters and journalists and photographers?
I think the last number I saw was 5.
Okay. So you were arrested, and then what happened?
Then I sat in the Justice Center for about 17, 18 hours, and they got processed and released.
Were you ever charged with anything, or
Not yet.
not yet? So they're still holding it, or they said they released you?
No one said anything. It's very strange.
Yeah, that is strange. I mean, I know that happened with a bunch of the J20 people with during the inaugural. Is that they're still, like, Shea is still in holding. Like, he could be charged. They dropped charges, but they could also charge him again anytime in the next, like, 20 years or something like that. I forget what it was. But yeah. So, all right. What can you actually say about? Because I know stuff's going on behind the scenes, but what can you say about what's kind of going forward?
Not much, because I'm not sure what's going to go on forward.
Okay. Okay, we won't go down that line then, because for once it's not often that journalists actually kind of, especially freelance journalists, get actually any sort of redemption from after being arrested. My personal experience, Shay's experience, who's Shay Horse, a regular on our show. He he's in the middle of a lawsuit. With the ACLU, not with the ACLU, but ACLU is helping him. He's not suing the ACLU. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Go ahead, Dave.
Daniel, what was it like for those 17 hours? I mean, do they give you water or food, or is it just basically you're just, you sleep on a cot? Do you sit the whole time? Do you sleep on the floor?
Yeah, it was pretty crowded. So there's room for a few people to lay down. And if you're lucky enough, you got, prop yourself up against the wall. But it was about 30 people in a cell. You stood on a bench, and I just basically like held my head until I fell asleep and wake up, and then wait for someone who was laying down to get up, and then try to get into their spot.
Hopefully it was still warm.
It was not.
Warm.
Yeah, it was an experience.
So do you think it'll have any effect on or impact on your desire or, willingness to shoot protests in the future? Or is it just basically, it happens?
Yeah, it happens. It's probably going to make me do it more, just because, I do a lot of that. It's like mainly what I do now. So, and I'm super stubborn. So
yeah.
If anyone tries to stop me from doing something, I'll probably try to do it harder. So,
Zach, I think the closest you came to something like that is you were just detained, right? Like maybe you were handcuffed or something, or am I mistaken?
Occupy Wall Street, the anniversary is coming up. December 17th, was it 2011? I was arrested and charged with trespassing by the Trinity Church of New York City, and held in detention for about 11 hours, a holding cell. Luckily, I wasn't cuffed the entire time, just cuffed. They threw me in a paddy wagon and I was given a rough ride through half of Manhattan, it seemed, because it was like a 25, 30-minute ride. And from the place that I was arrested to the holding cell, it's only like, I think like 8 blocks. But luckily I was, luckily I was on there with a couple priests, an archbishop of the Episcopalian Church, and a couple other people. So I didn't interest too terribly. Well, I think the archbishop lost some feeling in his hands permanently, but thanks to the zip cuffs. Did they give you Daniel? Did they give you was it zip cuffs or was it standard cuffs? I assume with 100 and some people it was the zip cuffs, which has become a journalist. Almost all journalists are kind of familiar with this at this point. If you go to protest,
they were the flexi cuff last ones.
Yeah. Which are well known for they tighten every time that you move your wrists, usually like a latching sort of thing. They're latching, so, and you can't go wider. So if you move your wrist that much, you actually eventually lose feeling in your hands, which is super duper fun if you're a photographer to lose function in your hands. But yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking, if you're a journalist who covers, that sort of thing, perhaps you wear like those tennis wrist guards or whatever, just so in case you are arrested, maybe you got a little bit of padding there. I don't know.
I'll have to buy some of those.
Anybody ever thought about that?
I had a full because I have carpal tunnel issues in my hand. When I got arrested, I had a full wrist brace on my arm, which was super duper helpful because this hand, it had a metal band through it and everything like that. So it was like a real full wrist brace, and they never took it off me. They put the zip cuffs over the wrist brace. And they were like, my arresting officer was like, "Are you okay?" I mean, he's the same guy that said to his higher ups, he said, "Are we arresting journalists?" Which is my favorite quote of my career. But when the police officer, you're arresting officer, and the guy goes, "Yes, we are." But I was also able to hide my memory cards in my wrist brace as well, because they never actually took the wrist brace off, even though it set off metal detectors and everything like that. So it is again how like really just competent NYPD is at their job, that they were cool with that. But I was happy with that because they were, at the time, there was rumors that they were taking reporters' memory cards and deleting them, but they didn't. Luckily, they weren't able to try that with me. So, because I hid them in my wrist brace and then hid them in my shoe. So yeah, but anyway,
Well, Zach, I think there's a marketing opportunity here.
Oh yeah. So
you're doing okay then, Dan, right?
Yeah. Everything's great.
Great. And you get some good imagery out of the event, at least?
I think so. I sold some video I shot from it. Actually got emailed for it while I was in jail. So
that's torture. You're like, I can't get it out. But you were messaging with us though. I mean, can you talk? I remember that you actually told me.
Yeah, I had my phone because they didn't search us until after we got out of holding, and actually not too long after I was messaging you, I was messaging somebody about some legal stuff, and a guard saw that I had my phone out, and I got searched and had it confiscated. So.
Oh man, that sucks.
Can you tell the story you told me off camera about how you got out of cuffs, or you're not comfortable telling that? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
I think that's a no.
It's not your fault. It's somebody else's. But yeah, anyway.
Since no one was getting searched at first, everybody had their bags. I still had my camera bag. They had stuffed everything I had into it.
Wow.
But they put it in my hand behind my back, and they're like, "Hey, this is your bag." And before we got searched, somebody had like a a little tool, kind of like a box cutter, and there's like a hook on the end, and you could pull it and break the cuffs. So they went around the room, and basically everybody got their cuffs taken off. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know like how angry the police would be about it. So I was like, I'm not going to do it. And then, you know, I get caught with my phone. I'm like, I'm definitely not going to do it now. So.
Okay. So you didn't get out of your car. Okay, cool.
I did.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Anna?
No, I was just gonna say he just didn't want to admit that right now, just in case, you know, anybody else is watching. So were they nice to you though, Daniel? I mean, the cops, were they decent? They're nice?
Yeah, for the most part, they were. They typically go out of their way to be cordial, like with almost everyone. I mean, some of them were annoyed that I guess they didn't know they were going to have, you know, almost 150 people come in to be processed. But it seemed, and from what I could tell from other people who had been arrested before, from the last kettle, they're like, yeah, they're being a lot nicer to us right now than they were, you know, a couple weeks ago.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to me. I'll talk about me. And then we'll close up with we'll close up with talking about the D850 and Zach's experience. You know, close it off with something happy, and then a camera.
Yes.
The best camera apparently, but we'll talk about that at the end. Anyway, so I've been in Puerto Rico for a little over a week now, and basically what I'm doing is I'm helping facilitate and tell the story of essentially what the DoD in alignment with FEMA, you know, because we're here to support FEMA and telling the story of basically just trying to get and help out the Puerto Rican people and help Puerto Rico and the governor and whatnot get back on their feet and get back to normal operating procedures and whatnot, and obviously getting food and water and gas and generators and helping the country stabilize after obviously a very devastating weather event. Of course, Hurricane Maria, Category 5 hurricane, that I believe came onto shore as a Hurricane 4 or a Cat 4, but still, that's still 150-mile-an-hour winds. And I can tell you just from being on the ground, it's tough, out here, and I'd say that it's not easy for them. A lot of the country is still without power, but I will say they are making progress every day. To those who may say like there's not enough going on or it's not going on fast enough, I'll tell you it is a massive operation to actually restore and provide humanitarian assistance to this country. It's not easy. It's a country that's twice the size of Long Island, and it's not helped by the fact it has very hilly terrain, and it is just. You got a lot of roads that have that have debris on it, or roads that are washed out, or bridges that are washed out. So I would say that the desire and effort by which, or the desire to help people, and all the people I've seen out here, from FEMA to the DoD to everybody, volunteers, like there's nobody here who isn't working in the best interest of the Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people. They're all trying their very darndest to help out as much as possible. But again, it's not an easy area to do stuff. You got to take into account the fact that it's an island surrounded by, as our president says, big water. And everything has to be flown in or has to be boated in. And the thing of it is, the ports aren't fully operational. They can't accept the big ships. We're working to get them operational, so they can accept ships, but everything has to be flown in. And tons and tons, like I think the last time we're pushing, the last numbers were about 7,000 tons of cargo have been flown in. Thousands of people have been flown in. The Air Force is handling that mission excellently. They're the first people to get the stuff in here, and then really all the gear, all the stuff you see, all the people you see, and all the water and food and everything that's being pushed through the country, the majority of it has been pushed through via the Air Force, and along with a lot of civilian cargo aircraft as well. But I mean, just tons and tons of cargo coming via the Air Force and being pushed out and whatnot. So I would say that, the year's getting in, and then the issue though that you have after that, of course, even if you have the truck drivers and everything, it's a matter of making sure that it's going to the right places, and that people who have it have the capacity to hold on to it and properly store it and whatnot. So I would say for the most part things are getting better, and things the systems and the logistics of getting stuff out there is, I would say, getting better. And as we become and move on to the second week of this post disaster time frame, I think things are getting better, but still it's going to be a long time before the country is I think back to a state of true normal. I think there's certain areas that you see, like the major cities. Some of them are getting electricity, some of their the gas. I would say one of the things like a big positive point is that the gas stations are now more fully stocked with gasoline. Post disaster, you saw like 8-hour, 4-hour lines to get gas. Now you can pull up in almost any gas station and fuel and leave just like you would at any normal in the United States. There's no it's gotten back to normal there. So yeah, it's going around the country and seeing the devastation firsthand. It's going to take a while. I haven't been in the deep areas of the country, the more rural parts and the mountains and stuff myself. I haven't seen that. I've flown over it, but it's a completely different view when you fly over that type of stuff, than to see it from the ground and see the people. But I would say everybody's trying their hardest to get this get the country back to normal, but it's going to take a while, and it's not for lack of trying. With regard to the mayor of San Juan, I can't speak to that, nor am I going to speak to that. I have not met her. I have not seen her myself.
I was joking about the fact that the FEMA rep has stated now that he has removed the mayor from the line of conversation. The mayor of San Juan, the capital city,
right,
out of the conversation of FEMA relief. So
I can't comment on.
It was a joke.
There's nothing really I can say. I can't really say anything. We did have the president and the vice president visit recently.
Yeah.
I can't really say much about that besides the fact that it happened.
I'm more curious on what sort of what is your crew kind of photographing? Like, so when the president comes in, are you guys taking photos of that and what is it that you guys are and if you got to jump because anyway photographing as well?
Sure.
Operations.
So I would say that there are multiple teams throughout the country, and throughout what I'm a part of, that are covering all the different types of stories that are going on. Again, the focus is on the relief effort, and what we're doing to support the relief effort, and every single part of that, whether that be DOD or FEMA or whatnot. So that's kind of like the focus of what's being covered. And then with something like the president's visit, there are people who are on my team, not my team personally, but in the DOD team, who definitely were a part of that event, and we're documenting that. Obviously it was a huge DOD event, to support that operation. Yeah. And so, there were members of the military who were part of the press pool who were documenting, and both major actions. And some of them actually got to meet the president, shake their hand. In fact, there was one person, a combat camera person who I won't name, who was photographed with the president, shaking his hand, and that kind of got coverage all throughout, like went viral, I think. Or at least it was, the representation was, the military and the president sort of like greeting each other. That was kind of like the representation, But we're covering everything and anything. We work directly with FEMA, and either it's something that they have asked us to help cover, some sort of relief effort they're a part of, or it's something that we've discovered ourselves that's going on. For instance, I am trying to help tell the Air Force side of the story, the cargo delivery mission, and because again, the cargo that you see getting out there, a lot of it is being delivered via C-130, C-17s, C-5s, every single aircraft in the Air Force's arsenal that can ship cargo is being used. And then in country, you have, CH-53s, Ospreys, Blackhawks, all kinds of different helicopters actually, delivering the goods to these regions that are inaccessible by, vehicle or, land, and then we're helping facilitate, telling that story to the media. So we work with the media to help get them to the locations that are, the story is going on, or we try and give them that information so then they can, broadcast that out. Because you have to understand, again, only a small portion of the country has electricity. And so if you're trying to communicate to the people of the country, really the best way you can do that is via radio, because again, like nobody has, a lot of people don't have internet. A lot of people don't have electricity. So if they're going to get anything, it may be a generator powered radio or something like that. And they're listening. So we try and make sure we're engaging with all the local radio stations and, ultimately letting them know that we're going to be here as long as it takes, and we will support them in anything they need and get them the resources they need. And that's pretty much what we've been trying to communicate, as much as we can. And, ultimately, the narrative will be dictated by the way the news media wants to cover the story, of course. And, that's what it is, and we'll still continue to tell the story of what's going on over here as we see it. And, it'll be picked up or it won't be picked up. But, again, with any sort of long-term story like this, people in the media move on. We're not talking about Harvey. We're not talking about Irma anymore. We're not even talking really about Puerto Rico as much. And, as time goes on, that will, just happen naturally. So, but it's been an interesting, eye-opening experience. I'm glad to have had it so far. And, a lot of people, think like, they see these disasters, they see this stuff on television, and they want to know how they can help. And I've never personally been, in the middle of something like this. Like, there's never been a disaster where I had the opportunity to go and help. I think the closest I got was Katrina, where, I was not selected, but somebody else was selected to go and support that, at least tell the mission. But again, to kind of be in the relief effort. And again, it's unlike anything really that's been ever seen by some of the response recovery folks in terms of the level of disaster. I've had people here who've been in, multiple different hurricanes, some of them just coming off of Irma and also Harvey. And it's unlike anything they've ever seen, in terms of the level and scope and stuff. And, that's why, we could be here for a little bit, again, us military folk, we could be here for, a little bit longer than we anticipate. But ultimately, though, being able to help the people here is in any way, in any shape and capacity I can, is, rewarding. And hopefully, we're making a difference and we're doing right by these people, because they're Americans and they definitely deserve our assistance in any way we can provide it. Do you either have any questions about, Puerto Rico itself, or what the mission we're doing here? All right, great.
I have a bunch of questions, but the problem is I doubt you can answer them on air. That's always the problem. I'm curious. Right? Is there a Puerto Rico team like that were based there?
Sure. There's Puerto Rico Air National Guard, Puerto Rico Army National Guard. There's Puerto Rico State Active Guard or state.
Oh no, camera. Like camera, basically combat camera, or or whatever. Like, so they would be. I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Are you talking about journalists, or are you talking about military?
I'm talking about military. I'm talking about
Sure. Well, obviously, like I said, there are military elements here, like the Guard, that have their own documentation teams and whatnot. But they're small. It's a huge story with a huge mission, and it's like we've got a lot of people here telling that, and that's just again, there's so much going on all throughout the country that you need a lot of people to tell that. So, but I would say that there were teams who were covering other places like the Virgin Islands before Puerto Rico became devastated, and they actually they moved from wherever they were to Puerto Rico. So, within, days or hours of the storm, I can't, tell you exactly, but, soon after the storm went through. In fact, there were people here on the ground from different units who were staging themselves in Puerto Rico before going out to like locations like the Virgin Islands and stuff and other places that were, hit by hurricanes.
Yeah.
To cover that. And then when Hurricane Maria came through, they were like, well, we'll just stay here. So, in terms of teams natively in the country, I don't know. I don't know exactly like how many or whatnot. I mean, probably there were in small numbers, but again, with something as large as this, you're always going to have outside teams. When I was in Long Island when I was in New Jersey and I was stationed at McGuire, we were hit by Hurricane Sandy. And, that was a major hurricane that, devastated a lot of that area, New Jersey and whatnot. And we had multiple different combat camera teams and photo teams and journalism teams coming to our location. And we had set up similar to what we have here, what's called as a media operations center, or in this case, a joint media operations center, because we have literally every service represented. And so, again, it doesn't matter the local forces, so to speak. There's always a need for more manpower in terms of covering something like this. And there's always just different agencies and entities that, want to make sure that, the story is fully covered. If you have half a dozen different, units and military units coming out to a location to provide support, well, guess what? Each of those units probably has a PA representative, or, photojournalist team or something with them.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure their story is captured, just as much as, you want to make sure your local story is captured. So, again, those type of requirements and the amount of stories, especially in such a short amount of time, because everything happens, there's a compressed schedule. You need a lot of people to capture all that at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about all your other questions off air. Daniel, do you have anything?
Are you doing any stories like not based around, military government sort of stuff? Are they like sending you out into the island to do, anything about like, personal people stories, anything like that, interviews or anything like that?
Right. So, the focus again is on the priorities set by what FEMA wants covered and also kind of what the military are doing. And a lot of the times those overlap with obviously the personal stories of the, the Puerto Rican, survivors here and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say, they're the direct focus, like it's not like we're going out just to cover that. It's usually in conjunction with something else we're covering, but not to say we don't. And I don't know if every story and everything we're doing, I'm dealing with one small section of the overall storytelling process here. And so, I would say that, we are definitely not, we are telling all kinds of stories about, the people on the ground and how they're, recovering from the disaster. There's photographs and video every day of, Puerto Ricans receiving goods. And, I remember seeing, because we put everything on a service called divotshub.net, by the way, if you're ever looking for any imagery shot by the military or any federal organization, it's all there. It's all copyright free, and it's available for anyone who wants to use it for anything they would like to use it for. And there's stuff on there all the time of, just those human interest stories about, a mother or a grandmother who's bedridden and who, you see, the food getting from the distribution point and getting to that person, and we tell that story. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're telling the story of everybody, not just us doing it, but obviously it's about the people and, their recovery. And, we're trying to do our best to showcase that. And that, if we can showcase the interaction, that's the most important thing, just to kind of, showcase, here we are, we're supporting you, and, hopefully, that word gets out. All right, I guess we lost Anna. Hopefully she'll come back on later.
I think she's been using cell data, so she may
ran out of data.
Maybe is just saving it for a little bit.
Well, that's the Puerto Rico thing in a nutshell. Again, I'll be here for at least till the end of the month, so perhaps I'll have more updates throughout the month, and kind of talk about any major stuff going on that I can talk about. So, but definitely, a rewarding experience, and again, hopefully making a difference and supporting the people. So, Zach, why don't you lighten us up the mood and talk all about your fun experience at Comic-Con?
I mean, it was Comic-Con yet again. So, I mean, it was, unfortunately this year, Javits Center was under construction. So that meant that it was now not just 2 different locations, but 4 different locations around, kind of within an 8 block radius of the Javits Center, which is the big convention center in on the western side of Manhattan in New York. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, I mean, wasn't anything that different than every other year. I mean, we've done like I shared a video, which if you ever cover conventions, there's always conventions around in cities. Chicago, Boston, Baltimore has really great conventions if you're in any of those areas.
Speaking of conventions, I'm
yes.
staged out of the convention center in Puerto Rico, by the way. That is where a majority
so is there
of
a Comic-Con going on as well? Like, because that would be interesting. I might come down and cover that. Maybe
Disaster Con.
You're like, wow, everybody's really cosplaying all these military guys. That I wonder what show. Is it Valor? Is that what they're cosplaying from? Anyway, but yeah, no, it wasn't anything like amazingly spectacular. As always, the convention press room was terrible, and the Wi-Fi sucked. But that's literally could be any convention you've ever been to in your life. So you can go back to, I forget what episode it is, but David Crew and I conventions, specifically comic book conventions, which kind of everything you need to know discussed on that. It is interesting though to see the gear upgrade over the years, because I've been covering this convention in particular since I think 2007 or 2008, whatever the first year was. I think I covered it. It might have been like when it became like a really big convention, at least. Like I remember I was out there with a Sony Z1U, which is a mini DV tape thing. It was a $5,000 camera way back in the day, and people would be like lose their minds, go, "Oh my God, I'm being interviewed by a serious news crew. When is this going to be broadcast?" And I'm like, "Well, it'll be on YouTube, but I just have a really expensive camera because I do other work." Like, wasn't that impressive? Like back when I worked for comic book related, I think it was. Anyway, but it is much nicer now. To work for comicbook.com, which is the 4th largest entertainment website on the internet and the #1 comic book website on the internet. So we get a little more oomph, like, we actually get to interview people like, the X-Files cast. That was very cool because there's a new season coming out, if you didn't know. Yeah, so, I mean, that was super fun. But the big thing, I mean, like, people are out there shooting with Reds. Like, normal news, like relatively normal news sites, they're out there shooting with Reds. They're shooting with full-on HD, like crazy Sony kits. I don't even know what the numbers are on Sony cameras anymore. And I'm back down to my tiny little, either I'm shooting with my Nikon D600s or my JVC 4K camera, which is, a $1,200 4K camera. So now I'm the tiny, like low-key guy. And then since I don't shoot with flashes and I shoot, I shoot super low-key, so I don't have to carry around crap, because I don't have like most of these guys have, like, I mean, like they were shooting, like half the crews out there now have like 3 or 4 people with them. So the press lines are super cramped. Back in the day when I first started covering it, it was like, maybe, I mean, people weren't shooting things with cell phones because cell phones really didn't have that capability back then when I first started. But, I don't know, maybe people had little handy cams or something like that if they were even shooting video. And then like the local TV news press were out there with the ENG cameras. But now, like, yeah, I mean, like I would say I saw at least 3 different crews with Red cameras. I mean, like the press room was just littered with, $10,000 video kits that people were shooting. And I'm like, what? Everything's on the web now. I still don't understand. I'm like, everything's on the web now. What are you doing? And then I made the joke because there's a guy next to me on a press line who's like, I don't even know what website he was shooting for, but he's shooting as like the big bracket with the microphone for the iPhone. And I'm like, the funny thing is that he will get his video out 5 hours before I even get home to upload my 4 gig video, because I mean, like, I did shoot one video interview for a documentary I'm working on in 4K, But that was literally it. Everything else was, you know, broadcast quality SD, or not SD, dear Lord, HD. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, like and I can segue perfectly into the next segment. After shooting this convention with like two different camera kits, depending on what I was using, I am really, really looking forward to eventually buying, maybe 2 years from now when I can afford it, when it's a used camera, the next generation has come out. I am really looking forward to buying the Nikon D850, which I believe is our next story. If you want to go in, Dave.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? I mean, well, I do. I was curious though. You know, you said this was, you know, differences. I want to say, like, in terms of cameras, I've been seeing a lot of different cameras here used by the media. Not to the extent I think that is at your convention. You know, mostly it's been, I would say, DSLRs and phones, honestly.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, the big cameras are for like the press conferences and stuff. But, you know, interesting to see that. Was there any particular star that you saw that you were like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm so starstruck right now? How about Kirkman?
I met Kirkman before he was famous. Kirkman's kind of Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead, creator. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, I met in a comic book store in 2006. Back, and that was before it was optioned and before the whole thing. Not really. I mean, one of the things that I'm usually behind the camera. So, like, I get a wave, like, oh, who's that guy lurking behind? You know, I mean, on the red carpet. So, I don't usually get to even shake hands with anybody. Even though, like, some of the stars, it's actually always interesting to notice, because unlike a movie premiere red carpet, like you see on like Access Hollywood and everything like that, that moves like that. Like it's just, there's literally a agent or somebody, whoever behind them, who's literally like tapping your reporter on the shoulder the moment you ask your first question to know that your time is up. But this one, it's like a little bit more low key. Like, you know, I mean, like we interviewed William Shatner, which was really cool. He was really nice. And answer some funny questions, but he, you know, I think he shook my hand. I think he like actually like waved to the person behind the camera, which is always nice, you know, when the handful of reporters, the handful of celebs kind of do that. You know, a lot of times they actually see, you know, you have to kind of, because it's such an intimate, it is often a very intimate setting, but it's so loud. But so they're actually looking at me for responses as well. So, like, unlike usually where I'm like shooting video, I'm paying attention to the audio or something like that. I also have to kind of be responding to, if they make a joke, I have to laugh, because the few times that I've been doing it behind camera and they make a joke and I'm like staring off into space because I'm not really paying attention to anything other than physically what's in the frame, like making sure that everything's there. It's been super awkward because they're like, oh crap, that joke just, you know, didn't work. But so it's definitely a different experience than what I usually do. And also now all the stars, including even the, like, because it's comicbook.com we write for, so like we do a lot more like with just the guys that like write and draw like DC comics and stuff like that. Or Marvel as well for that matter. But so guys that are I can't think about the number of people within the comic book industry that I've taught how to do on-camera stuff. I mean, like, okay, so you look this way, don't worry about this. Like, used to have to direct them, and now they're all super camera ready. Even if they're not physically super camera ready, because they're comic book artists and writers. So they're literally, half of them look like the comic book guy from The Simpsons. But they do know now to look a certain way and kind of like be professional, which is a nice difference, because it used to be a lot more work. They also know to not say certain things. It was the one very interesting over the entire convention, and then we can get to the Nikon thing, was for the most part, I would say comic book writers are pretty lefty. There's a lot of right wingers in there, but most of them have been kind of destroyed. They've destroyed themselves by saying some really horrible racist or sexist things. So like they'll tweet out something and then like, oh, guess what? Their career is kind of over. So it's now kind of a little bit lefty, and then some silent people. So had a lot of people, like I interviewed the Gifted, I videotaped the interview with the cast of The Gifted, which actually looks really good. It's kind of X-Men, but before X-Men, like when they're being hunted and stuff like that. There's like, obviously the X-Men has a very immigration relevant kind of, there's a lot of issues that if you're in a country that's run by a president like we have, there's a lot of parallels. And we had one person who literally unprompted just went and never mentioned Donald Trump's name, but was like, it's a lot like, why would you possibly build a wall unless you want? And she just went on this tangent, and I was like, and I'm like smiling and laughing because I love this stuff, and I know that our editors back in the office are like, oh crap, because they hate politics. Even though that one video interview will probably go viral and get us much more traffic, which always drives me nuts because I'm like trying to get people to. Surprisingly, we tried to get Gillian Anderson to go off on a Donald Trump rant, which she has before, and she was like, there's this really great, like 25-second long, in which in the time of a red carpet interview, 25 seconds is like sitting there for like 5 minutes during a normal interview, like on TV. Like that's how long the equivalent is. And she was just kind of like, and then she kind of gave a not really safe answer, because I mean, you could certainly tell that she was like, I know where you're leading me. But that was actually a really great, like, I think it was almost better than her going on a tangent, because like, we've kind of done the tangent thing. Like, we all know where Gillian Anderson stands on people like Donald Trump. Like, it's kind of a thing. Same thing with Duchovny. I mean, the photo right beforehand, I mean, like right before Khan, they posted a photo on Instagram, the X-Files Instagram, of both of them kneeling. And like, I don't know if they were doing this, but like, it was clearly a solidarity with the football players. And so that was a super interesting thing. But as you're saying, like, let's jump into Nikon, because we're already on, because I really want to talk about the best camera ever.
Absolutely.
And it just so happens to be what brand, Dave?
Panasonic. No, you're right. Nikon. Yes, the D850, a magnificent, wonderful, magical camera created by the geniuses at Nikon that has apparently earned a DxO rating of 100.
Yeah.
Perfect score, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's actually not a perfect score, because it's a ever increasing score.
Really?
There's a breakdown, but yeah, no, it's not out of 100, because then, you know, I mean, which makes sense, because then what are you going to do when we
wouldn't need any more new cameras? We'd have the D850.
Yeah, exactly. When Sony comes out with their camera in 6 months that, you know, they've been holding. So
can it go up to like one? Can it go up forever? Is it just goes up?
I mean, I guess it can go up forever. I was just reading like quick comments on a couple of the things, and I guess that's the explanation. I haven't read the direct about, but yeah, it's not a perfect camera. I'm sure there's some problems with it that we can find. Like I guess that women can't use it. I don't know, but that's sorry, Nikon. I apologize. I have to make a cheap joke at your complete lack of ability to figure out that women also use Nikon cameras. But
we can use the Panasonic GH5.
Well, as the Nikon, was it president, I think it was, or chair, said, well, we have to come out with a camera that can fit in women's hands, which is why we were talking about coming out with a mirrorless camera. So the Panasonic GH5 would be perfect for a woman then.
Daniel, how excited are you about
my sarcasm?
Yeah.
I mean, not at all.
Wait, are you a Canon person? I thought you were a Nikon person for some reason.
No, I'm a Canon person.
Oh,
right
God,
on.
I forgot.
Canon.
Oh, God.
Well, tell me when
I mean, you know, as a camera person, just a photographer in general, I mean, have you followed, you know, do you have any, does the Nikon 850, like, are you curious about it? You know, are you impressed by its specs, or do you not even follow it because it's made by Nikon?
I mean,
have you even looked into the camera?
I haven't really looked into it until today when Zach emailed me, but anytime like someone's doing something new with cameras, that's good for everybody. I mean, eventually,
yeah.
Like Canon's gonna have to match or beat them whenever they launch something new. So
yeah, I mean, Canon, you know, I love them as a brand, but their inability to put 4K in, you know, anything but their super duper high end cinema cameras and their super duper high end expensive, you know, flagship cameras has just been really devastating for me personally, because it's just like, oh my gosh. And then when they did implement 4K, which is the only feature I care about, you know, they did it so poorly in their you know, the Canon 5D Mark IV that I just like, you know, you can't hold a candle to, you know, things coming out from Sony and Panasonic. And I think, you know, Nikon is doing it right with their G8, you know, their 4K, at least as far as I can tell, on the Nikon side. But I mean, does video interest you? Is that something you dabble in? You know, would you, you know, or you don't care about it?
I do. I would just like when I shoot video, if someone asks for it, I'm usually shooting stills at the same time. So I've actually sold more video shooting off of my iPhone than I have from any of my DSLRs.
Really? Wow.
But I mean, occasionally I will get asked to do a video, and I'll do it on my my 5D, just because it looks way better than shooting with a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want that sweet, sweet depth of field.
Yeah.
There was an article on Petapixel that talked about the difference between depth of field from like the full frame versus the, you know, the, what was I going to say, the full frame versus the, you know, the DSLRs and stuff like that. And, you know, you can obviously tell the difference if you put them side by side. The depth of field is so much better on the full frames than, you know, but it's not huge. You know, if you definitely want the shallow depth of field, you got to go with the full frame.
I mean, I think that they're just, I mean, one of the problems
I think it's acceptable.
That article is that they didn't use the same lenses, right?
Yeah, I think they used
so they just tried to match.
Field.
So like, I honestly, like, they're just different to me. Like, I'm looking at the article. What's the title? You can go on petapixel.com. We'll put the link. But a full frame versus crop sensor shootout. Can you tell the difference? And honestly, they're just different. I don't really see all that much of a, like, oh, I prefer this one over this one. But
so Zach, you know, as someone who is obviously a resident Nikon fanboy here, what are your thoughts about the D850? I mean, like you said, you would get one if you could. You may get one in a few years.
I wish it was. I wish it was under $2,000. I mean, this is my one problem. I mean, Nikon, Canon. I mean, all the companies are kind of do this, which I understand. They put out these, you know, cameras, and then I assume in a year, a D600 equivalent will come out. Basically, a D750 replacement, I assume, will come out and have most of these specs. So I guess I just have to wait, or, you know, hope to God I ever get paid from any of the people that bought my photos from Charlottesville, because I still am waiting for most of the people. But that's a whole different story.
You got that like 13 cents from that one place, right?
Oh my God, yeah. No, I don't worry. Shay, or I don't know, Daniel. I forget, Daniel. Do you upload to any of the wires, or did you?
No, that's another story.
Oh yeah, no, okay, yeah, but I mean, no, Shay Horse and I got our quarterly reports from Nerf Photo, and they're depressing to say the least. So we'll be talking about that in another episode because I'm writing up a piece and probably trying to get it on like Columbia Journalism Review, because it's a whole kind of conversation about how freelance photojournalists can possibly continue to work without like either holding a different job or you know, like basically it shouldn't be a non-profit thing that we're doing. But yeah, no, I'm incredibly excited for this tech. I mean, when the camera first was announced, I was all about it. If nothing else, for the fact that it would lower the price of the D750, which is the next camera that I'll probably end up buying, just because of the slightly better specs than mine, which actually I'm looking at the rating and seeing that the D600 is actually supposedly better sensor-wise than the D750, which is surprising. I'm I love that Nikon is. I feel like Nikon was kind of taking like putting all this stuff in the 5,000 in like the D5 or the whatever the D4 camera, and I'm happy that this is I mean $3,300 nowadays I guess is a kind of an average professional camera price. So it's certainly cheaper than the Sony that came out, right? I think. So I'm happy that Nikon seems to be at least vaguely moving in that right direction when it comes to pricing and when it comes to kind of realizing that people who want this camera are not, not millionaires, and people who are going to use it are working photographers for the most part. So, this is very promising. I mean, the 4K video obviously is a big thing. I'd love to be able to shoot on my DSLR. I hate using my separate video camera because it means that I have to carry 2 pieces of gear because I don't go anywhere without a still camera. So if I can have this, and then one of these days I would really love an actual audio input, not a mini audio input on a camera. I know that'll never happen because I'd love to have Nikon come out with a C100 or C300 equivalent. That'd be super nice. But this is to me a step in a very, very, very good direction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, if I were to switch, from Panasonic, it would have to be for a camera that just, again, blew my socks off. Mm-hmm. And this camera is close, and if I were ever to go back to Nikon, I don't have any camera, I'm not cameraist, I guess. I'm not brandist. I don't know what's the, I'm ambidextrous. I love them all equally. Diversity, but if Nikon, this is a camera that would be close, but again, there are a lot of reasons why I wouldn't go to this camera. Again, for my personal purposes, like video recording length, I think is still limited to 30 minutes on, this camera. Camera body size, lens size, they're all things that once you go micro four thirds and once you go to that, smaller format, it's tough to go back to the full, frame. I mean, when
we lose you, Dave? I think we lost Dave for a moment. Looks like the mayor of San Juan cut his internet. Maybe FEMA's like, he's talking too much. But yeah, so I don't know, Daniel, is this a camera you'd ever, like, let's just say magically we all had money for this. Would you switch to Nikon for this camera?
I might. I own like 4 lenses, so I mean, it's not like I'm super invested in Canon.
Yeah.
But I mean, just now, like, it's convenient, like, to stick with the Canon bodies.
Yeah.
Use, for the little video that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I really just like to get a standalone video camera that I can put my, like a cinema camera, C100, something like that, just to take.
Well, I mean, that's the one. I mean, that's what I keep kind of complaining about. I mean, I don't see Nikon ever kind of moving in that direction. I mean, mind you, my understanding is that like I'm probably going to sell my JVC camera just because I can't stand the switchback and having to carry around 2 things. And I'm seeing the work that like Emily Molly is doing and Marcus Topola is doing with the C100s, and I'm like, well, I know I've been told at least that the adapters work really fine because I'm not going to have 2 sets of lenses. I don't make that much money. There's no world where I make that much money. But I need something that can record more than 30 minutes. I record speeches and I record different things, and and I want something that has XLR inputs because I had the horrible thing where I did an interview at Comic-Con and I was using a standard mic that just went straight into the D600, and I guess that the plug wasn't all the way in. So I missed the first question. So, which I'm horrified by because, I'm supposed to be pretending that I'm a professional at this. And that's not something a professional does. But, since the D600 is not a video camera, it does video, but it's on a video camera, then Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aspects that just immediately come standard with a video camera that I would like to have. I mean, like the fact that I don't know where it is, I can't even figure out where it is in settings, and maybe somebody who knows more about Nikons than even I do can tell me where it is in settings that I can figure out how to make sure that the audio levels stay on when I turn on video, because they've disappeared now. Would be nice. But I've got them on one camera but not on the other. I don't know if that was like an update that I missed or something, but yeah, but I mean, so I mean, if I haven't been able to see the actual inner workings of the menu system on this one yet, whether they've kind of put more of a focus on video and kind of had some more options, which would be super nice. Like being able to change settings while actually taking video would be a really big thing, because most video cameras kind of had that. But again, you're buying a still camera that also does video, which is kind of a problem with almost anyone. I don't know how Canon videos work, but I'm sure Panasonics do it all because they do everything, right, Dave?
They're kind of perfect. What can I tell you? You know, speaking of changing settings with Nikons, you know, the D4 series, starting I think with the D4 or D4S, anyways. What was cool about that camera was that it could change ISO while recording video. So like I remember when they had the promotional material for it, they were showing videos where they started in a dark environment and went to a light environment. It was a smooth.
Yeah, my 600 does that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's more and more you see that, and again, I think Nikon is doing great things with the space, and what they do, I think lifts all boats. We're gonna have to see everybody else step up their game, and I still think Nikon, well, with the exception of Sony's kind of taking their boat, but with the low light stuff, I think Nikon is killing it there.
Not on this one. The D7, the D850 is better on that aspect.
It's better than Sony?
Yeah, and it's about the same price point. So, which is
I thought the article said that the higher ISO was not as good as the Sony.
Oh, really? I thought I was looking at the levels and it looked at least as good, if not better.
Yeah, I think they're both doing great things to push that limit, and I think if I'm going to fault my own camera system, it's in ISO. It kind of struggles past like 3200 or 6400 in terms of showcasing an image that doesn't have a lot of grain on it. But that's what you deal with the smaller sensor. It's the downside, the only downside. Otherwise, perfect camera system in every way. DxO 5000, never beat.
When you look through the eyepiece, like you're seeing like a little computer screen, right? Not the actual image. I mean,
you're seeing you're seeing a screen. You're not seeing.
You're not seeing the actual image. So, isn't it just an iPhone?
You're right. It's like a little iPhone squeezed into a viewfinder. There you go. I can see exactly what the
to me, that's one of the big things that like I want to be able to see through the lens. I don't want to see a freaking computer screen. Like, because to me there's
no lag. You're seeing the exact same thing.
I'm not seeing lag. I mean, not only is that one more thing that can go away. Like the fact that like I can pick up a D70 today and it still works like gold. Like, because there's nothing really. There's not as much to go wrong. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. I want to be able to see through my lens. It's why I never liked Why I never liked. Oh my God, I'm blanking on. Not DSLR, but the other kind of
rangefinder.
Yes, yeah. I just.
I mean, mirrorless cameras. I mean, just the fact they're just a hack. Really, they're just a hack to show you what you're seeing through the lens, because you got to have a mirror there. I mean, talk about things that go wrong, Zach. The mirror. There's a mechanism going up and down. That can break.
You lose pixels. You lose. I mean, I can lose the entire back screen of my camera and still use my camera.
You can't use your camera if the mirror breaks.
Yeah. I mean, you can't use your camera if the screen on the little. I don't know.
I can use my camera because I can use the back.
I'm a traditionalist. I want to be able to see through the lens because that's kind of to me what defines a camera.
I'm seeing through the lens. I'm just seeing it on screen. And the advantage of seeing it on screen is that I can see how the settings impact the image. I can see like, okay, this image is going to be overexposed or underexposed. I'm not trying to guess at it, by looking through the viewfinder and, what's happening, and then chimping later.
So it's cheating. It's kind of cheating.
Cheating?
You're cheating.
You're using a light meter in your camera. Are you cheating?
No. You're getting a live preview of what you're doing, and
yeah, absolutely. I know exactly how my settings are going to affect the image before I ever press the trigger. I think that's
so you're relying on a computer to do your work for you then. Okay.
No, I can turn it on manual anytime and see exactly how it's going to look. I mean, it's like saying, hey, don't use your light meter, don't use this or that, and DSLR, you know.
Okay. I think we've fallen far from our photographic gods. That's what I'm saying. I think that mirrorless cameras are one more step away from what we were really supposed to do.
Only taking out my Panasonic 6x7 from now on.
Yeah, I'm going back to film. You know, you're right. I mean, all this digital stuff.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm only going out and covering what I cover with an oatmeal canister and.
All right. Well, I think it's about time.
Originalist. I'm an originalist.
We're at an hour and a half, so I think we should end the show. I want to thank Anna for showing up tonight and talking to us about her experience, and Daniel, thank you for talking about your experience. And Zach, I have nothing to thank you for personally.
So when are we going to do I want to do like one day when we can't do the show. One day we need to set this up now. We need to do it. We need to set up a clip reel of just us complaining, just arguing about your Panasonic camera versus Nikon cameras, and that can be just a clip episode. We need to do. It'll probably have more views than anything we've ever done before.
Right. If neither you or I come on the show, we can just have those clips running around.
Yeah, exactly. And then just Ron in a corner going,
You guys. But again, thank you all so much for being on the show. I do want to say one last thing about the people of Puerto Rico. They're extremely resilient people, and everything that I've seen of the documentaries and what they're doing out there shows that resiliency. And I think no matter what, they're strong people, and they are going to be get through this with no issues whatsoever, and I think anything we can do to participate and help in that is amazing. And I did get to see getting to work side by side with members of the media and seeing people who I know from this show out here doing it has been really awesome. And if you're listening to this and you are in Puerto Rico, I am in the I'm hanging out with media a lot of the time, so come see me, and we'll try and get you out there, and you can help. We can get you to cover all the stories and get you where you need to go to find the people, because again, it's like we're just trying to tell the story, and it's tough, like I said, with all the other competing news interests out there, but we'll keep on doing it because that's what we're here to do. So that's it for me. Thank you all for listening to the show tonight. Again, please follow us, like us, subscribe. We're on social media. Go to aroundthelens.com to connect with us in every which way you can. We always appreciate the support, appreciate the reviews, the comments. Please engage with us on social media platforms. I really appreciate it personally, and it's kind of what we as the creators of the show get out of this show, since we're not being paid. So this has pretty much been it. Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, Zach, you're not getting paid. Anyways,
you and George Soros are the two people who I've been waiting for paychecks from for the last
2 years. 2 years at least.
2 years.
Don't worry, you'll get a big paycheck at the end.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, thank you all for listening to tonight's show. I've been David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 95, and we are out.